I've only read 6 books all year. If you've noticed, I haven't done any monthly reviews. I haven't made a single wrap up because I've barely been reading. Mostly that's because of school. Like, I really get into my reading groove in the summer usually, and then when I haven't been reading during quarantine either because I've been super tense, and because of those two things I've only read 6 books. So I thought maybe I'll start by doing quarterly wrap-ups, like every 3 months, and then as I start reading more, you know, then I can do actual like other more frequent like check-ins and what have you. I don't know, but let's just get into this. The first book I read this year was The Ghost Bride by Yang Zi Cho, and it's basically a book about this young girl named Pan Li Lan who is asked to marry a recently deceased young man named Tian Qing. He's like this wealthy guy in their neighborhood that was supposed to inherit the household or whatever, but he passed due to mysterious circumstances and illness, and his mother was like, hey, marry him, his ghost, like his spirit, so like he doesn't come back and like haunt us or whatever. And she really didn't want to do that. So the book is about like his ghost trying to convince her to marry him, even though she wants to marry his cousin Tian Bai. But Tian Bai has a crush on somebody else because he was overseas for a while and now he's back because he has to take over the family household, but he always wanted to be a doctor instead. And basically there's some drama. And for all the drama that there is in this book, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars simply because the pacing felt very slow. So it was a really nice book. It's just that I didn't feel like there was a lot happening. And the second half where she ends up, well, the second half of the book felt, the pacing was weird, if that makes sense. Like there were some parts of the book where I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then there were some parts of the book where I kind of had to like just like get through it because it felt like there was nothing really going on. Li Lan in the book, she's very passive, I feel. Like things just keep happening. She's like, oh, I should do something. And she does take action in some situations, but like other times it's like, girl, you know? And the reason why I read it is because they also made a TV show of it on Netflix, and I was interested in, I had heard about the book first and then the show, but I was really interested in both of them, so I was like, okay, let me read the book so I can watch the show. And I am planning on making a video comparing the two, which I've been thinking about for at least 2 months now, but I actually didn't finish the show until like last week because school, like that's it. But I loved it a lot. Like I do like the show very much. The second book I read was Wicked Saints by Emily Duncan. That's my sister, if you heard that, I don't know. And you know how I feel about that book. I didn't like it. The third book I read this year was The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars because that book was amazing. Like, oh my gosh, I loved it so much. It was super fun. It's basically the story of, well, okay, the main character, Locke Lamora, he is a con man, and he's part of a group called the Gentleman Bastards. Gentleman Bastards consist of him, his best friend Jean, these 2 twins, I think Callow and Gallo or something like that. They got one of those names where the twins are very similar. And I think they have like a young protege whose name I completely forgot. And what they do is that they con the richest people in the city for no other reason than because they have the skill to. So good. I thought it was so well written. It would have gotten a 5-star, but something happened that made me really unhappy. Something happened that made me really unhappy. Like it was resolved. It was put to rest in a decent way towards the end. But if it wasn't for that one thing that happened, I probably would have given this a 5 stars. And I won't tell you what it is because that's a spoiler. Next was Gods of Jade and Shadow by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. And I gave this book a 5 stars because it destroyed me. Oh my gosh. That book, I read it. Heart been broke so many times. Gods of Jade and Shadow is about this girl. What is her name? Cassiopeia Toon. She's a young Yucatan woman living in, I think she's living in Mexico, I'm not sure. And one day she opens up this chest that has a Mayan god inside of it and accidentally, like, you know, reawakens him. And he's like, thank you. Now, come with me. I have to go, like, get, like, my eye, my finger, and my necklace back. She was like, I'm not going anywhere with you. And he was like, yes, you are. And then they, you know, they go on this adventure. It's so wonderfully written. I really, really love the mythology of this. Like, not a lot of people write about Mayan mythos, but, like, that's kind of one of my favorite pantheons. And then also, it combined with the time setting of, like, the 1920s flappers. There was a lot of themes of, like, finding your freedom, basically. Especially with Cassiopeia. She grew up basically taking care of her grandfather and her cousin, I think. I don't know. And they were always mean to her because she was darker and she wasn't considered, and she's like part Native American, so she, like, they consider her less than and things like that. And I really, like, she really blossomed over the course of the story. The next book I read after that was The Bird King. I have no idea if you can see this or not because I film on an iPhone, but this book is by G. Willow Wilson, and it's about a young girl named Fatima who is the concubine to the Sultan of Granada. The Spanish come to their, you know, their palace, and they're like, hey, let's vibe or something. I don't really remember the beginning of this book, I'm not gonna lie. And then one of the ladies is part of the Spanish Inquisition. She finds out that Fatima's best friend Hassan is a map maker who can make maps of places he's never seen, which is considered what? Sorcery. What did the Christian church hate back in the day? Witchcraft. So that's a problem. They basically have to run away from the palace and go in search of somewhere where they can be safe. And I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars, I think. I did like it. It was a really cute book. I did enjoy it a lot. Like, overall, I enjoyed the story. I really did. But I really felt like the last, I don't know, 30 pages didn't need to happen, if that makes sense. Like, it's like they had a plan, you know? They finished, they completed the quest, and then we could have ended the book there, but there was more stuff that happened. Like, I know it was to wrap up loose ends, but I didn't care. Other than that, I really did enjoy it. I thought it was a really fun and sweet book. And I feel really bad that I have this on me because I borrowed it from a friend and now we're in quarantine, so I can't give it back to her. And then the most recent book I read, I finished this on like May 31st actually, is Dumplin by Julie Murphy. And I listened to the audiobook of this on Libby by chance. It's a contemporary novel, which shocked me. Like, I just wanted to give it a chance because I don't read a lot of contemporary. I was thinking about that. So I was like, okay, let me try it. And I loved it. I think I loved it partially because it takes place in Texas, right? So all the voices are very, very Southern, and that was simply delightful. And on top of that, the main character loves Dolly Parton. So I just got to learn a lot of things about Dolly that I never knew before. I didn't know there was like a Dolly Parton land type thing. I never knew that existed. That's not on my bucket list, you know what I mean? Oh my god. It's a book about this girl named Willow Dean Dixon, and throughout her life she's always been plus size, and she's never had a problem with it actually because she's always been confident in her skin, you know? Recently her aunt, Julie? Was it Julie? I feel really bad that I can't remember her aunt's name. Recently her aunt died from health related problems due to her weight, and ever since then she and her mom have been butting heads kind of, because her mother is very much someone who believes in like fad diets and things like that, and even though Willow doesn't really subscribe to those like ideas herself, it does make her frustrated to see her mom act like this. Because of this and other reasons, Willow decides to enter the town beauty pageant along with a couple other unlikely suspects, she calls them. And together they're not entering it to win, but they're entering it basically to have themselves be seen, if that makes sense. And I thought this book was so fun. There's like a romance involved with someone that she works with, and he's super sweet and super cute. They're so good together. And I think overall I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I liked it a lot. It was really, really good. And I would highly recommend getting the audiobook on Libby if you have the app. It's just super, super fun to listen to. It's only like 9 hours. That sounds like a lot, but there are books that are longer. So yeah, those are all the books I read. There are 2 other books that I DNF'd. I picked up Ship of Smoke and Steel by Django Wexler, and then immediately put it down before finishing the first chapter because I didn't like the main character. She was like, you know, the archetype where they're definitely a baddie. Like, I'm not gonna lie, her power is very cool, but I didn't like her like inner voice, her mentality, the way she talked to herself. So I was like, I'm just not gonna read this right now. Maybe I'll pick it up later because it does seem very cool. But like, I didn't want to read about a hero, about a main character who like hates herself. And then The Diviners by Liba Bray. I started that on audiobook and I got through like 2 or 3 hours of it, but damn, I didn't like it. There's a lot of slang. It was like, because it's set in the 1920s, you know, and it was like listening, I love Sandy Cheeks, right? But it was like listening to her talk and say Texas related things for hours, like just on repeat over and over again, and I didn't care for it. Also, it's supposed to be a horror, like part horror, thriller type thing, but the horror section wasn't scary to me. Like the first scenes with Naughty John, and the girl he kidnapped, I didn't care about. So I was like, if this is an audio format and I'm not even scared, what's the point? So I didn't finish it. But yeah, that's it for the first 3 months of the year. That's all I've got. I think this is still pretty long though, because I talk a lot. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.